Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, wherever you may be. This is Joey, I am Sam, and this is by Hook or by Needles. Now, this intro is the same. I'm going to do the one intro for both of these videos just to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to show you 5 of my favorite knitting tips and hacks, and then 5 of my favorite crochet tips and hacks, or whatever you want to call them. They're not going to be in any particular order. They're just 5 tips and tricks and whatnot that I use. So yeah, I'm just going to show you those, and hopefully there'll be something different there or something new there that you have not yet seen. And hopefully if there is, or if you know someone who's just started crocheting or just started knitting, perhaps share the video out with them. Show them, these few tips and tricks, because, they might not know them, and it's just going to make their life a little bit easier when it comes to doing a few things, a few basic things with knitting and or crocheting. Okay, on to the tips. So this little hack or tip, whatever you want to call it, is for counting rows. Now, I think most people, or most knitters, they look at the little V's and they know that that is one row. Sometimes, the bumps might be a little harder to count, but there is an easy way of keeping track without having to rely on remembering to click a row counter. And if you've ever watched Mrs. C doing her Some Bunnies, you will know this hack already, or this tip already. She uses it with her knitting, crocheting, sorry, but you can just as easily use it with knitting. And what that hack is simply you start by just purling, knitting. You just start by just working away. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place a piece of thread between those two needles like that, of a different color, and then I'm going to continue purling across. Now that is marking one row. Turn, we can see that its thread is hanging forward. And if you look, you can see that there's a stitch above it. So that is below the first row. So let's continue. And like I say, you can't forget to do this row counter because it's right there, it's visible. And you go, oh yeah, I need to put that thread to the back. And that's counting your second row. And how it works is simply, it's that's one row, and then each time it goes behind the stitch, that's the second row. So let me show you what I mean. I'm just going to pause for a second. Okay. Now, can you see the thread? Right. So the way we count it, as I say, is, oh, I think I've missed one there, but anyway, we'll go from here. That's one row, and then we've got the spare thread is a second row. The spare thread goes behind a row because we can see the pink. That's row 3. It's then in front of the row. That's row 4. Goes behind the row, row 5, row 6, row 7, row 8, and then if we do another row, that'll be row 9. And that is how we can count our rows using a piece of thread. On the back, it works exactly the same way. If you actually pull it apart a bit like this, you can see there's a thread there, thread there, a thread there, thread there, 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 and there, and there, one at a time. So you can count in front, behind, in front, behind, in front, behind, in front, behind, or you can just count 2 at a time. So you can go, that's 2, 4, 6, 8, and you can count your rows as easily as that. It's particularly good if you are new to knitting and not quite sure how to count your rows. Like I say, you can't really forget because you see the thread there hanging there when you are actually knitting away, and that is your reminder to move the thread either to the front or to the back. Now let's say that I need to, let's say I'm doing a repeat of 5 stitches. I'll make it, 5 stitches. Alright, so I'm doing a 5 stitch repeat. This can count my stitches too. So, I'm going to count 5 stitches. I'm going to do 5 purl stitches. 1, 2. So I'm not going to move it back at the moment because I'm not using it as a row counter anymore. I'm just using it as a stitch counter. So 1, 2, because you would use a second strand for stitch counter if you were doing it, if you were doing that. 3, 4, 5. I'm going to take the thread, move it between the needles, and then I'm just going to keep on purling. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Grab the thread from the back, from the back, and move it forward. And then I'm going to purl again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I'm going to move it back between the needles to the back, and then I'm going to just purl to the end because I haven't got another 5. Okay, so how does this help us? Well, if I've chosen to do it every 5 stitches in and out, I can go 5, 10, 15, 18 stitches. Simple as that. If I am working in the round or making a huge blanket, and you can use this for crochet and or knitting, and I've got hundreds of stitches, or only 100 or whatever it might be, I might go every 10 stitches or every 20 stitches or every 50 stitches. So if this was 10 stitches, it would be 10, 20, 30, 33. And in this way, if you're coming up to a row where you've done a lot of increases and decreases and all the rest of it, and you want to check your stitch count, but you don't want to count as you go, you just have to, all you have to do is count every 10 stitches or 5 stitches or whatever, move the thread to and fro, and you've also got a stitch counter that is just a piece of thread. And at the end of your project, you just pull it out and throw it away, or use it for the next time you are going to do some knitting or crocheting. I really like this little hack. I especially like the stitch counting one. So, pretty, oh, I like it. It's pretty good. Alright, let's go on to another one. Okay, the next few hacks are for working in the round. So, one of the biggest problems with doing a long tail cast on is knowing that you've got the, actually I might do that, no, I do it on the round, is knowing that when you do a long tail cast on, you've got enough yarn to do all the stitches that you want. So normally you would look at the stitch. Some people say if you wrap the yarn around like that, that will give you 4 stitches worth, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then they say, hold it there, then you can measure that, and that's 10 stitches, and you can multiply it by however many stitches you need. That's one way of doing it for sure. But the easiest way, and guaranteed to work, that you will not run short or run too long on doing a long tail cast on is, and you can do this with one ball of yarn or two, is you grab your ball of yarn, okay, I've got the outside thread there, I've got the inside thread here, I join them together with just a little knot, okay, and I hold my needle like that, I get into my slingshot position, and I just start casting on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and you can just keep casting on, and it doesn't matter how many stitches you need. You don't have to even think about how long your yarn needs to be, because you're using 2 different strands. You're using the outside of the ball and the inside. If you've got 2 balls of yarn, you can just use one thread from each ball if you like, but very often you might only just have the one ball, and you just keep going and going and going. And I'm just going to just keep going with me long tail cast on until I've filled my small hook here, because I'm going to use the this as another little trick and hack, whoops, as well. I want to show you when you're knitting in the round. Now this obviously, using from the outside and the inside of the ball, you can do this for knitting straight or in the round. This is not specifically for knitting, in the round. I'm just using, I'm just showing you an example of knitting in the round. So I just keep going until it's long enough. Hang on, nope, keep going. I want to be nice and comfortable fitting around. Excuse the banging of the needles against the wood. Okay, if you don't know how to do a long tail cast on, I do have a tutorial specifically for some cast ons. There's 2 or 3 different ways of casting on in that video. Okay, so let's say that's it. I've done. Okay. Now what do I do? Well, I only want 1 thread. So, you've got a choice. Firstly, with your end, you want to drop that off. You don't want to use that. You want to drop that off. So drop that off and then make sure you still got the stitch count that you want. Okay, now you've got to decide, okay, do I want to work from the center or do I want to work from the outside? Well, this is the outside thread, is it? Yep, and this is the inside. Well, I want to work from the inside, so I get the outside thread and I just cut it off. And now I've got all my stitches done in long tail cast on with just a reasonably short tail, and I can just wrap that back around my ball and I can continue working from the center. Done. So easy. There's no, I didn't run short, I didn't have a huge long tail which is wasted. That's a great way of doing your long tail cast on without ever having to worry about wasting yarn or running out of yarn. Okay, let's get on to the next one. Okay, next tip. I'm going to join my knitting in the round. So you need to make sure that it is not twisted, firstly, which it's not. Then I find the best way to do this is you grab I like to grab both ends so that they don't unravel or become really big stitches. And then what I do is I always cast on 1 more than I need. And then what I do is I pick up the last stitch from the cast on, and I put it onto my left hand needle. Okay, so it's my last stitch, and then I get the first stitch and I pull it over that stitch, and now I am joined. I've lost a stitch because I pulled my first stitch over the last stitch, so it's joined it, and then I can just start knitting. Oops, where's my working thread? So I can just start knitting. And you might want to just, if you're doing two balls, you can just undo the knot at this stage. You don't want to do it too tight to begin with, so you would undo the knot that you created to join, for your long tail cast on. And you can tighten that up. Tighten it where the stitches are over the needle, so that when you tighten, it's not going to shrink the stitches too much. Or you can just leave it, and you can just tie them with the other tail end. And you can just go around and around and around. And that is how I join my stitches, or join when I'm working in the round. Time for another one. The next one is working, I'm going to need my other knitting needles back, and I will show you the next one. Now, for this little tip, this is what I call perfect edges. Now, you know, you can knit without doing this, but you will find you'll have bumpy, you know, possibly untidy. Oops, that stitches, the gap is too big. Let's go back. So I'm gonna, what I normally do if I'm knitting a scarf in particular is I cast on the number of stitches that the pattern tells me, or the number of stitches that I want to cast on for my scarf, and I'm just going to do that. Okay, so what have I got? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Let's just say make it 12. Okay, so I've got 12. Now, if you're going to use this format of perfect edges, and I have already done a video specifically on this in a lot more detail. Once again, you will find that in my playlists under knitting tutorials. But, you know, this is just a quicker and shorter version. You need to add 3. So you need to add 3 more stitches to your count. Okay? Whatever your count is that you need or must have, you add 3, and here is why. And I'm going to knit. I'm going to do garter stitch. So the first stitch is always going to be slipped purlwise. So purlwise means we go into the stitch as though we are going to purl it, but we don't. We pull it off instead. Holding onto the stitch, we then go into the next stitch and we knit 1. That actually creates an increase. That increase won't be there for long, because when we come back in the other direction, we're actually going to knit these 2 stitches together. At the end of every row, you will always have 3 more stitches than the stitch count should be. Okay, so I'm just going to knit to the end, and I'm going to show you what we do at the end. Well, I've already told you what we're going to do at the end. We knit 2 together. Now you can use this if you are doing brioche knitting in one colour. I haven't sort of managed to sort of work it out that I can do it on brioche when I'm working 2 colours, but if you're working, if you're working in one colour, it will work. Okay, so I knit to the last 2 stitches. Remember, I had 1 extra at the beginning and 2 extra at the end. I had 3 extra stitches. Now I've got 4 extra stitches before I do this next stage, because I've added that one. But when you get to the end of your first row, or in every row, you knit those 2 stitches together. And what that does is it creates a V at the end, which you might not be able to see very well, and you just turn. And we start every row the same. We slip as if to purl with the yarn in front. We hold the stitch, we go into the next stitch, and we knit it. So now I've added the stitch again. But it's not actually an increase, because at the end of the row we're going to knit 2 together again, and that's what keeps the stitch count stable, but it also is what creates this really nice clean edge for your knitting. And I will probably have to work a few rows off screen to show you what I mean. So we come to the last 2 stitches and we knit those 2 together, and we turn our work. Once again, we slip as if to purl, we hold on to the stitch, then we knit the next stitch, and that gives us an extra stitch. Won't be there for long, because at the end of the row we are going to take off one stitch by knitting two together. Down to the last two. You can see one is a stitch and one is a yarn over. Knit them together. And as you can see now, on the edge, we've got a very pretty V's. And it's very straight. And the same is at the other end. Just a V. Okay? It's nice, straight, perfect edges, and it helps prevent some curling. Doesn't prevent it completely, but it certainly helps. So we purl, slip as if to purlwise, knit, and we just keep going to the very end. When we knit two together, so we decrease the one we just increased. Whoops, don't lose your needle. Okay. And knit those two together. And once again, you can see it's a nice clean edge. It's like the base, sort of, with the V's, and the other edge is the same. And you just keep doing that. It keeps your row count stable, but gives you a nice clean edge, which is especially nice if you're trying to brioche in one color. And I will show you that one day. Oh, I'm just going to do one more row so you can see exactly what we're doing. And then I'm going to show you the next little trick. Well, more of a trip. More of a tip than a hack. Okay. And knit the last two together. Once again, you get the really nice, what I like to call perfect edges, because they really are really neat. And then you just keep going. But oops, I'm going to leave it here and get ready for the next tip. Back in a second. Here we are again. I've got my knitting. This has got my perfect edges on, but that's okay. I'm not going to think about the perfect edges right now because I want to show you something else. So I'm just going to knit one row while I explain what I'm going to do. Now, there are many ways of increasing. There's a left leaning increase, and there's a right leaning increase, and there are many different ways of doing it. There's also left leaning and right leaning decreases and all the rest of it. So what I'm going to show you is I'll knit those two together just for now. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is what is known as a make one left and make one right. So the make one left will lean left, and the make one right will lean right. So let's do the left lean first. So I'm just going to knit a few stitches to get to the to a section where I'm going to do the increase. Okay, that'll do. So I've knit 3 stitches and now want to do an increase. So I pick up this thread in between the 2 stitches and I put it on my needle. Now, oops, put it on the needle the other way. Okay. Now, this is leaning to the left. See how this stitch, once I've picked it up, is leaning to the left? This is how I know it's going to be a left leaning stitch. It's a make 1 left. Okay, which is written as an M1L. So, what do we do when we've got a M1L? We picked up the stitch. It's leaning to the left, so we know it's a left one. And we're going to knit through the back. That is how we do a make 1 left. You won't see it as well because I'm knitting a garter stitch. And then I'm going to just knit 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to put that on. Now you can see it's leaning to the right. So this is a make 1 right. It's leaning to the right, it's a make 1 right, which is written as an M1R. How do I knit into this? Do I go in the back? No. It's slightly different. I go into the front and just knit it like normal. And that will give me a right leaning. And then we'll just knit to the end. So the way you pick up the stitch will determine whether it's left or right leaning. You can't unfortunately see them with this. You can just see that stitch. It's leaning towards the right. This is where I've done my increase. It's leaning towards the right. Let's find the other increase. It's over here, and that's leaning towards the left. So let's just turn, and we'll do another couple of increases. I'm just going to knit 3. This is just more for remembering the terminology. So if you pick it up and put it on like that, and it's leaning left, you know you're doing a left leaning increase. If you pick it up and you put it on like that, it's leaning to the right. So you know it's going to be a right leaning increase. Okay, so you know when you come to it and you're going, okay, I've got to do an M1L, and you put that on, say, like that. Oh, sorry, hang on. You put it on like that, and you go, oh no, that's leaning to the right. I've picked up the stitch, or I've picked up this, bar here the wrong way. You've got to pick it up, and then you've got to put it on the needle, and you want it to lean to the left. And that's how you know you're doing an M1L. And then with that one, you knit through the back of the stitch. Okay, and then of course you keep knitting, and it might say you need to do an M1 right. Hang on, I need to knit a couple more because I think that was over the last one. Okay, I'll do 2 more. Okay, so there's my bar, and I put it up like that, and it's leaning to the right. You can see it's leaning to the right. So this is a make 1 right. And it's just a way of determining whether or not you're doing the right or left leaning increase. And of course you go through the front when it's right. And it just saves you having to try and memorize little mnemonics, or not mnemonics, what do they call them? You know what I mean? To remember whether it's left or right and how to do it. You just look at whether it's leaning left or leaning right, and that will help you with your work. Now, yeah, I'm going to do, yep, so I will do one more. Is it one more? Yep, one more. I think, hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4, no, I've done all 5. I'm not sure what order I'm going to show them to you in, but I have shown you all 5. So hopefully you've learnt something, you've seen something that you have not yet learnt before. If you haven't, then, you know, great, you've had a refresher course. If you have, then that's great too. You know, please share it and let other people know about these great little tips that'll just make your life a lot easier when it comes to knitting. Okay, I'm going to end it there. Wow, okay. That's all of them. Just 5. 5 knit, 5 crochet, whichever video you're watching. Once again, the ending is just going to be the same for both videos. Just makes sense. Again, if you have seen something that you didn't know before, great. If you knew all these tips and tricks, that's great too. It just gives you a little bit of a refresher, and maybe if you didn't know something, or even if you knew them all, you can still share this with somebody who might not know any of them, or only knows a few of them. I appreciate you watching. I really do hope you enjoy them. I enjoyed showing them to you because I sort of think, gee, I wish someone had showed me these a lot sooner than I learnt them. So I'm going to say bye. Joey's still sleeping. He hisses at me, you know. He's a very rude boy. I have to tell you this. When I walk around the house, he will walk in front of me. Now, I'm not too steady on my feet. And I swear he's trying to break my neck. But anyway, I'm not too steady on my feet. And this fella, he walks in front of me. And ever since they were kittens, I've always gone beep, 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 beep. And the louder I beep, the more urgent it is for them to get out of the way. Because it means, get out of my way, I need to sit down. I've got, you know, because I'm going to fall down, or because I'm sore, or whatever the case may be. Anyway, this one, if I beep too loudly, he just turns around and hisses at me, as if to say, I'm going to go my own pace. And if you don't like it, bad luck. Very rude, shitty boy. He's very lucky to be sitting on my chair. Anyway, I love him really, but don't tell him that. I don't know where my little girl is. She's off somewhere. He's been fighting with her again. He's a big old bully. He hisses at me and fights his sister. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'm going to say bye for now.